Hi, I'm Loretta Franks. I'm the VP and Chief Global Data Analytics Officer at Kellogg. I've been here 15 years and I'm here to represent.
Beyond technical skills, what else are you looking for when you're hiring into your tech teams at Kellogg's?
So there's a couple of things I personally I think being able to have a rapport and social skills with people, I think is really important. And I think the curiosity and willingness to learn, you might not have it all, but I think if you've got that ambition and you've got the curiosity and willingness to give it a go, I think that to me provides great insight to the, the drive that you'll have going on. I think solution orientated and real innovative mindset. How do people look at something and flip it to, right, how could I solve this? How could I fix it? How could I look at it differently versus, well, it's someone else's fault. It's quite easy in data to play the victim or the blame game. The data that was given to me was of poor quality or this was that. And I think, what we find is the people that really bust some of those challenges are ones that figure out a way forward and flip it into a positive. And then broad thinking and an external lens. And then I suppose lastly, I do think some element of financial acumen is really, really helpful. If you think about building business cases, value propositions, the analytical element of data, I think just some experience in that along the way and that you can get that from day-to-day life, right? That doesn't mean you have to go and do a chartered accountancy exam, just budget management or some simple things like that, just really having a feel for the economy and how things work in the world, I think really helps as well.
Can you tell us how Kellogg's is using data in a way that we might not expect?
So we use data in all aspects of the business. So a lot of it is internal, but then obviously there's a huge amount of external data coming at us. And one area that certainly for Kellogg, it's hugely important is how we use data to inform and bring insights around products renovation and innovation. I think that's understanding our consumers and really understanding what's important to them, what they like, what they dislike, what they value, allows us to be better equipped to be able to continuously develop trusted food brands and products that really delight and excite them for years to come. We also use data internally a huge amount, whether that be through people analytics, looking at the market, the talent, our gender 50-50 targets, attrition rates, retention rates, engagement rates, all of that is data. And then we also look at a lot around our end-to-end. So from a business planning perspective, what's our demand, what's our supply, the basics of running the business when it's informed by data is considerably more insightful. But I think I would say data is one element. That the big unlock is what you do with it, and that's the slightly harder aspect of getting the insights, converting it into action, and a faster decision making. And there's not a silver bullet to that. That takes a lot of change management and cultural and process mindset, but it's all over our business today. I think we don't have any shortage of it, and it's integrated in many of our processes, which is great.
Why is data and analytics so key to helping Kellogg's retain its place as a market leader?
I mean, the one thing I would say is it definitely, COVID really helped us look at things through different lenses. Behaviours of consumers changed through COVID, irrelevant of really specifically breakfast, but the times of day we saw people consuming our products, was different because our lives were different, right? We were all locked in our houses. You didn't have the commute. You didn't have the breakfast at the table with your kids before they went to school. So there's a lot of insights that we gained from that, and trying to settle back into what is our new norm is interesting. But and also some of our other great products like Pringles, how the purchase of them changed a little bit through COVID. So I think that was a major insight that we gained around consumer behavior.
In what ways are your team breaking down innovations that data can unlock?
It's through partnerships. So, I report through the IT function and into our global CIO, and typically have more of the technical engineering, data science side of the end-to-end value chain when it comes to data. Alone, there's no way we can be successful in really shifting the gear across the organization. So we've got a hashtag in our team called Business Back Data Forward. And that's really about making sure that we build those end-to-end connections irrelevant of what function or team are in. We're really all trying to agitate and accelerate the unlock of data in our organization. So that involves multiple people across the business as well, whether that be, marketeers that are looking at the data to draw insights, whether it be our senior leaders making, significant decisions around that data, whether it be our data SMEs or owners that actually know, the real crux of the data and making sure that it's validated, it's trusted, it's secure, so there's a whole ecosystem around it. We play a big role in that, but I see it as a much bigger ecosystem, and the combination of the teams and the capabilities is where the value comes.
In what ways can we encourage more young people to study data?
I think a lot of it is just making sure that they know that the opportunities are there for them as well, and that understanding and being educated about those options at their early stages within their school life. I think again it's the stereotype allow them just kind of almost narrow their exposure to other opportunities. So I think it's more about continuously talking about it. To your point, building role models, getting them access to other people. And there was a great phrase I heard not so long ago is, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And that's quite a depressing thought, really. But it's true, right? It's hard to aspire to something if you've not seen it, right? Because it's normally something tangible or something visible that allows you to get an excitement for doing something. So that's a quote that's not mine. I can't claim it, but it's one that's certainly stuck in my head as an important one to remember.
Last year, Kellogg's rolled out new technology on its cereal boxes to help people who are blind and partially sighted. Can you tell us about that project and how it was impacted by your data and analytics team?
Thank you for asking the question, because it's an amazing platform to talk about it. So in 2020, a member of the IT team actually attended an event and learned some quite startling stats, which is more than 2 million people in the UK live with sight loss and are unable to simply read the information on packaging. So it sparked an idea to add NaviLens technology to our packaging, and it allows visually impaired people to access the information on our cereal packaging via their smartphones by having it played out to them using accessibility tools. So it was really against living with our purpose, which is a seat at the table for everyone. And NaviLens Technologies provides equal access to that information, making it truly inclusive. So IT partnered with our packaging and design team and launched the pilot. And after a successful pilot with IT, making sure the right data was on the codes, it was scalable through automation and integrated with NaviLens technology. And Kellogg became the first company in the world to include NaviLens on packaging. So after lots of success, they've been adding it to our cereal boxes across Europe. And we just raised the bar on inclusive and accessible packaging by sharing our experience, and brands and other brands are following suit now. So it's just an incredible story, and I think it helps provoke all of us that, diversity and inclusion it goes much broader than sometimes what we typically think about, and that's, I think, a great example of that.
Is it true that as you climb the leadership ladder, your role takes you further from getting your hands dirty within the technology?
So my view on level and seniority is kind of irrelevant to when it comes to your passion. So I think continuous learning, hands-on experience, it's in our control. And if that's what gets you motivated and that's what helps you learn, I think you should always find opportunities to do that. I think there's a balance, though, between keeping grounded and connected to the tools and the technology that you're deploying or asking your consumers to use, and ensuring, but you've also got to be able to lift your head up and look around the corner and think strategically. And the other watch out you've got to have is if you dive in all the time, what does that do to the empowerment of your team? So getting the balance right is really important. If you're always in the weeds, they're kind of thinking, well, is she checking up on me? Is she not sure that I'm doing it right? So I think you've just got to me, balance continuously knowing when you need to dive in, making sure that you keep your own passion and curiosity alive, which is, probably why you've gone into that career in the first place. Sparking you, and then making sure that you actually have hands-on experience of what you're expecting your customers to use, day in, day out, and what you've purchased and deployed, but also making sure that you don't, micromanage and overshadow, and you've got to lift your team up, you've got to empower them, and you've got to know when to step back and look forward at strategy. So it's a fine balance, but I don't think there's a black and white answer to it.
As a data analyst, how do you make sure you're always staying ahead?
Bit of everything. I get a huge amount from my team. I think sometimes we're always so eager to look externally, and there's an incredible amount of knowledge and passion and interest within literally on my doorstep within my own team, as well as my broader network within the organization. If you think, a lot of our business partners are also attending conferences, and so using them as tentacles of information is also hugely helpful versus just taking it all on myself. Yes, I do go to conferences. I mean, there's a lot out there, so trying to filter out which ones are really, focused on the areas that you're trying to get to, because otherwise you can start to become very overwhelmed and not really know where to go. So prioritization, focus on what you're trying to do, and learning more about that space. And then, personally, I'm not a big reader. I probably, it's never been my interest, and neurodivergent, I'm dyslexic, so sitting down with a book is not my bag. So I do listen to podcasts. If I go running, I go to conferences, I audio books, but I find I learn the most from hands-on experience and speaking to people and going through ideas, and our strategic partners are also great funnels of information, because they understand Kellogg and they understand what we want, so they're able to help filter some of that and tailor what we need. So leverage the network would be my advice.
How has working in a data role with dyslexia affected your career so far?
I think it's probably helped. So there's a lot of variations of dyslexia, both with regards to what your strengths and challenges are, with whether it be numbers or letters, etc. But also, obviously, extremity about how much that's impacting your how you learn. But mine was I was good at numbers. That was just, I was analytical. It was natural. I mean, that's why I did physics, maths, and economics at A-level. I wasn't doing English, history, and it was just not my comfort zone. So that helped, and actually, I didn't think about it at the time, but now I think, well, data's a really logical place to go, and a lot of some of underlying, building statistical models within the data science space, it's got, finance and analytical elements to it, hypotheses testing and regression testing. That's all what I learned at economics at university and at maths. So I think just, again, I say this, and it's easier for me to say it now, but I did struggle with it at the time. It's not something that you should allow to hold you back. It's just figuring out how you can amplify your strengths and apply them. I think sometimes it's felt as that's not what I'm good at, and your confidence drops. But again, just finding out where actually your brain is naturally wired to see things differently and see things creatively, whether you're more creative, whether you're more analytical, whatever. So I'm proud to say it has, it's probably less of an impact now. Now you're out of kind of a school environment and academia and very traditional ways of teaching in terms of my school experience. I'm out of that now, so I can kind of learn how I want to learn. But I know it's not easy at that earlier stages. So I think it's just, I think we need to continuously work on that, and from a learning experience perspective.
What would you say to individuals in our community who are neurodiverse and are afraid of letting their employer know?
Everyone has I wouldn't want to guess about what their drivers for not coming forward. I think, love to speak to them individually and ask them. But I think, for me, I was the same, and it's only taken me now the confidence to be able to, drop it in a conversation like I just did, and it still felt a little bit weird, I'll be honest. But I think more of us that can do this, in the roles that I'm in and the level I'm at, I can hopefully can help. But I think what I would say is trying to think about what is driving that fear. Is it, if you mentioned fear of judgment, is it fear of success? Is it fear of being held back? Is it fear of loss of opportunity? Because actually, again, if you look around, there's so many examples in our business and our industry of people that have got significant neurodiversity experiences, who are hugely successful, who are hugely courageous, who have done all kinds of amazing things in this world. So I think it's just kind of be motivated and inspired by that. I think there's all the obvious ones that people talk about a lot, like Richard Branson, etc. But I think the more that we can, that feels very far away potentially from people. But I think the more that people like myself and others can talk about it, and they can again see what you can be, I think that becomes less daunting. But I think you've just got to find what you do, and you think, whoa, I'm just naturally really good at this, and everyone keeps praising me for it, so it's going to do more of it. That there's no better feeling when it becomes natural to you, and you're not like slogging away. I mean, I remember being in English classes, I'm thinking, this is a nightmare. No matter how hard I read this book, it is just not going in. But maths, I was done, right? I was done early. So I think just finding that, and then that do more of that builds your confidence, and you'll soon realise you've got incredible value and potential to unlock. So,
is there anything that has surprised you about being a leader of global teams?
I've absolutely loved it. I think, and I know that seems weird to say that. I'm probably not surprised by it, but I didn't know it, I'd never experienced it. But the diversity of cultures, of experiences, of backgrounds, I just love it. And I was in a European regional role for maybe 7-8 years, and then I've been in the role I'm in for a global role ever since. And I think I'd struggle to look back really and not have a global team. I think it's hard logistically sometimes. You're globally spread. You don't have the ability to have that personal face-to-face connection as much as if my whole team was based in Manchester and we could all go for lunch. And so I think you have to be much more intentional and focus much more on bringing you together virtually, and that engagement work, and making sure you connect with people when they're going to bed and you're waking up. But I think in terms of being surrounded by so many cultures, languages, experience, I just find it so rewarding and so humbling. And I've learned a lot of being a leader of a global team. I think it's broadened my mind a lot. I think I realised I was probably, even though I'd travelled the world, I'd not really travelled the world, right? And I think I hope I kind of always have some global element throughout my career, and it's also allowed me to visit and experience many places in the world, and I'm very grateful for that. So I love it. I absolutely love it.
Advice for your younger self?
I think the big one that I've struggled with personally, so this is maybe more later on, but mother of two, just judgment, letting those voices of other people's opinions make you feel guilty or apologetic for some of the decisions you make around your career. And I think, just having the confidence to know that you're making those decisions that are right for you and right for your family, and they're anchored against what you're prioritizing and what, you need to do at that time in your life. I think often judgment comes from other people viewing your decisions against their reality, right? Which is always different. So I think one of them is that I think I continue to do that and try and do that now. And the other thing is just back yourself more. And I think, there's a lot to be said to just, I do feel like I've embraced opportunities throughout my career, and I think that's something that I've probably been relatively courageous in, but there's always been a lack of confidence underlying, and I think just backing yourself and knowing that you are good, I think is a huge thing, very simple thing to say, hard thing to do, but trying to do it continuously, I think will really help.